Hello, my name is Bianca Noir, and this is Break Stuff with Bianca Noir. I have lived in this apartment for around 6 years, and when I moved here, I was coming from a program called Northwestern Community Services, where I had initially been homeless for about a year. And, while I didn't trust these people that I was working with at this organization, I definitely thought something suspicious was going on. They did end up hooking me up with this apartment. But as it turns out, this apartment was going to be an issue in itself. I did get the apartment, but eventually they cut me from funding, and very suddenly I had to pay the full rent, and the rent continues to increase. So my rent just increased. At first, I was on a lot of medication because Northwestern Community Services has psychological services and medical. They have psychiatric services and medication services. So I also was under the influence of their medication services, their medication management program, even though I knew deep down absolutely nothing was wrong with me, and I really didn't think I needed to be on all these drugs. But they put me on these drugs, and I took them for a very long time. One day I decided to stop taking one of the medications, and I felt a lot better, and that was an antipsychotic. My issue is actually really, really high levels of anxiety that nobody is helping me with. Nobody's really helping me manage it. I was on anxiety medication, but it's an extremely high level of stress and anxiety I'm constantly under, and nobody really believes me about why I'm under this level of stress and anxiety. They don't really care or concern themselves with the whys. They just think that I need to be under the influence of medication, and thereby putting me under medication, they've done their job. Well, I've gotten absolutely no advocacy, and I ended up in the program, but I'm not in the program anymore. So I end up with this apartment. I have to pay the rent. They brought in all this really large, full-size furniture when I moved in here, and some of it is still good. Some of it looks really nice. It looks pretty high-quality wood, but then there was this chest of drawers, and this chest of drawers became a serious problem for me. The drawers started falling out. I had already been losing socks and underwear in there, and since the drawers were falling out, I was sticking my hands back there to find things, and I would get pricked by nails, and I sort of have been sitting on this idea of how I would get it out for many years. I feel personally, you may not agree with me, but energetically, I hate having something that doesn't work in my apartment. I can't stand it. I feel that it is just really, really bad luck. It is a bad omen. It's a bad message. I feel that a piece of furniture or something you have that's broken, you should just throw it out as soon as possible. I think it invites bad spirits and bad energy. So ultimately, I had asked for help, and I was thinking, while I was actually under the influence of this medication for quite some time. It was, again, an antipsychotic and antidepressant, and it was making me different. It made me also, because I had to work, and I had to deal with the community, and I also had to deal with people harassing me and being really obsessive about me on the job. it caused me to be in sort of a submissive state. But after a while, I couldn't tolerate it anymore, and my anxiety was through the roof. So I started sort of losing my shit a little bit, as they would say. And you know what? I don't lose my shit like other people do. I'm really cool about things. I'm actually super cool, but what I am not is super nice. And people were expecting me to be super nice, very submissive. They were expecting me to be very, very, very people-pleasing. And so this is where this whole additional trafficking stress came up, because I discovered that while I had thought that I had left a trafficking situation multiple times, I knew that I was being stalked still. And part of what my problem was with my psychiatrist is my psychiatrist at the time, which I'd never had a psychiatrist before, who had put me on all this medication, she was trying to convince me that none of this was happening. She was trying to convince me nobody's stalking me, nobody's obsessed with me, and that I have a thing called delusional disorder, and I'm a little bit psychotic. And she believed that I was delusional about these stalkers. And actually what it was is I truly believe she was actually stalking me, to begin with, this woman. And she's an Indian woman. I'm not sure if she is technically an immigrant, if she has dual citizenship or what, but I really, again, didn't necessarily trust these people. I had no other choice besides working with them, because I was in a sheltering situation and I had no other place to go. So I had left trafficking situations multiple times, and then I was in the hands of this service. And so I feel that ultimately, you know, I couldn't prove it, but the way that these people treated me and acted was that they actually already knew of me, but they acted like they had never met me before. And constantly people always act like they know of me to begin with. They know what type of person I am, or hey, they get it, they get me. But actually, I think it is that they have been stalking me or talking about me before they meet me, and then they swoop in to see what kind of gains they can make in their career having to do with me and the significance I have and the kinds of things that I've done and my reputation, and how they can kind of exploit that situation for themselves. Well, when I moved in here, again, there was all this big furniture. Well, this chest of drawers right here, with it falling apart on me, I thought that I was going to get some help from the maintenance here at the apartment complex. And I had actually asked them a couple of favors, and they were fine for a while. And then I started to see some things change. And what I realized is they were doing me personal favors, because I think that they had some feelings had developed. They considered me to be friends or something, and maybe they, whatever they thought, I just thought that was a part of maintenance, and it apparently it was not. And so the talking that we were doing and the stuff like this, I've cut all that off. I'd asked them to help me with a couple of things. They took a really long time helping me with something, and by that time I had already found another way to go around it. And then now that I am really clearly off the medication that I was on, I've been empowering myself. I've left the job where I thought that I was being trafficked, and I had reported it all, and I have set up a surveillance system in my house because I am in danger. I'm in danger from traffickers. I feel that I'm, being stalked still. I don't feel like the trafficking is being cleared up, and I'm not sure that it will right now because of the kind of administration that we have. However, I wanted to get this drawer out of my fucking house. And I didn't know how else to do it because it was heavy. It was too heavy for me. And that's why I was thinking, two big guys, they could come in and get rid of it, right? And when I had asked about it, the guy was like, well, I'll just throw it out the fucking window. And I'm like, wait, what? And that was one of the last times I talked to the guy. He had also said some weird things, But anyway, I've cut off conversations and communication pretty much completely. what I decided to do is start collecting tools in a way that didn't look like I was having a pattern of collecting dangerous tools. And I started looking around at things that I would be able to use to break this thing down. And what I realized today is just how fucking easy this really was. It was so easy for me, and I had been sitting on this idea of how I would get this out of my apartment for years. I thought I would need a dolly. I thought I needed 2 or 3 people because it was so heavy. What was really heavy was the thing on top, and I couldn't get the drawers out. And so what I started off with was this axe that I bought that has a sort of blunt or smooth end on one side that I can smack a hammer into it while it wedges into, a crevice. And then what I realized is actually the crowbar was much, much easier to use. Crowbar. I liked sticking the crowbar in there, and actually, to be perfectly honest, I got a lot of pleasure out of this, and I will just be totally honest. I highly recommend breaking shit down rather than asking anyone else. Don't ask anyone else. Take pleasure in breaking that piece of shit down that doesn't work for you, that has the bad energy. Put all your bad energy into it. Put on your favorite music and break it. Break it down. It was the most wonderful feeling I have had in a really long time, because I'm a really nonviolent person, and I take a lot of my frustration and anxiety and things out on me when it comes to movement. I do a lot of exercise. I dance. I do very, very hard workouts for dance purposes, and I don't do things really like repairs. I never really built anything. I had some woodworking classes in school that I had to take. In my school, I actually had to take classes that were gendered more towards males and gendered more towards females. We had to take both. We had to take cooking and we had to take woodworking. It was kind of weird. A cooking and like sewing and stuff like this, and then also like a woodworking, and I had to build a little table with little magazine rack on the bottom. So I remember some of this stuff, and then I grew up around guys who built things and did woodworking and things like this. I just wasn't invited, and it wasn't really cool for me to be there. But ultimately, I just want to say this was actually pleasurable. I actually got really into this, and maybe this is the kind of thing that I might want to start doing with some of my time, is trying to assemble things. I might want to build other things, nice things, not crazy shit, nice things, like with tools and, assembly. I might want to get more into this, and, I might want to build tech stuff. I don't know, but I got so much enjoyment out of breaking this chest of drawers. It just felt great. So, highly recommend breaking something down instead of having somebody else move it out for you. I figured this out by doing research. I just asked, Google. I was like, how can I break down this really, really heavy chest of drawers that's not working, that gives me negative vibes in my apartment? And it told me to get tools and break it. That's what it told me. Break it down. It didn't really tell me how. It gave me some suggestions, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to get some tools together, and I'm literally going to just figure it out one of these days. And I thought it was going to take me hours. I thought it was going to take me days. I actually bought a little handsaw, and I thought it was going to saw it into pieces, and I was so scared because that handsaw is really sharp, actually. And so I got gloves, special gloves for this project, and I made sure I put on my shoes. And what's really, really hysterical is how easy it was just to break this for me. to take this hammer and just hit the hammer over and over again, like a couple of times, and it just fell right apart, which tells me that, you know, despite how heavy it was, it was this thing on the top that was so heavy, where it's like the countertop, the top of it was a really, really, really thick piece of particle board. The whole thing was particle board and glue and nails and staples. And the top part, the top piece, was very, very, very compressed particle board. And the rest of it was the cheapest. It was like cardboard, sort of like that thicker cardboard. And that was on the bottom of the drawers. And those were stapled into pieces of particle board. I mean, it's such a piece of shit. And it just looked like it was a pretty good piece of furniture, and it wasn't. And literally, I thought this was going to take me all day, and I got so much pleasure and so much, it was just a feeling of just adrenaline and power to break this. I recommend, if you're going to break something, don't break something of value, don't break a person, break something that's already broken on you, and enjoy that. Don't pay somebody. If you could only imagine how much people wanted me to pay them to take that out. I got a quote, it was like $300 from some guys that move stuff. I was in shock. So I saved $300 and dealing with men, and I feel proud.